Hello, everybody. On Facebook, we're here at Gay USA. I'm a little concerned because I have construction workers right outside my apartment drilling on the walls. So you might hear some of that in the show. I hope not, or at least I hope it's not too horrible and distracting.
Consider it a soundtrack.
Yes, I'll try to talk in rhythm to the drilling.
Do some rapping. Be careful.
Well, and I'm sucking on a cough drop again.
Yeah, I've just broken one out if I need it, and I have my water at the ready here.
Me too. We do extensive preparations for Gay USA.
We have silenced our phones.
We have. And we're just going to sit here for 24 hours to see what happens to George Santos.
Well, you saw what the speaker said.
Yeah.
He's
I'm against it.
He's reticent about it. But
he's a little more than reticent.
They talk about allegations. These aren't allegations. This is what the committee researched and found.
He also admitted to a lot of it.
Yeah. And it's all, well.
Save it for the show.
Yes, I will.
In 15 seconds.
And we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup, trying to reach the same level as you, Andy, on my.
And we remind you, for those of you watching on Wednesday or Thursday, Friday, December 1st is World AIDS Day, marked all over the world. I don't know where George Santos will be marking it. He spent the week lashing out at his colleagues in Congress.
Well, and comparing himself to Mary Magdalene. More on that. But if you don't think things in Florida can get any worse, stay tuned. Shocking proposal.
Kentucky's Democratic Governor, Andy Beshear, who just won re-election, said cruel anti-trans ads that were run against him backfired.
If only everybody felt that way. Seattle middle school students tell Moms for Liberty what they really think about them. And Florida high school students, sorry, I'm having trouble reading the screen, have rebelled against discipline for administrators who let a trans girl play in girls volleyball.
Yes, I do read an article there. The Netherlands swings right.
The Pope shows off his right hook and his left hook.
It's not cricket. Trans women were banned for the international game.
You know, Andy writes these headlines and he's just getting more and more clever every week. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. That's dating you. For LGBTQ journalist Masha Gessen and others.
I just saw that movie on cable a couple of weeks ago.
You're a little late.
I saw it when it opened in the theaters. A Roman emperor is found to have been an empress.
And Leonard Bernstein is gay.
Leonard Bernstein.
Oh, well, I know his cousin, and one is Stein and one is Steen, and I can never remember which. Leonard Bernstein is gay in Maestro, but is he gay enough?
And Rita Mae Brown's novel, Ruby Fruit Jungle, just turned 50.
If only we could say the same.
So, should we start with George Santos?
I guess so.
He's going down swinging.
Well, we're taping on Wednesday afternoon, per usual. The vote on his potential expulsion is scheduled for tomorrow, Thursday. You may know the results by the time you see this show.
But, he'd scheduled a press conference for Thursday threatening to divulge dirt on colleagues who he says vote while drunk and sleep with lobbyists. I'm more concerned that they do the bidding of lobbyists and screw the people. But Santos will not resign, he said. So the vote to replace Santos, if he does get expelled, could be held as early as February, with Democrat Tom Suozzi, who held the seat before running for governor in 2022, the favorite, although that Long Island district has become more Republican. Santos says there are felons galore in Congress. Name names, George. Out Representative Garcia says Santos owes an apology to the American people, and I'd say to the LGBTQ community. When he ran, we reported that he was on TV during the campaign saying, "Oh, I would never abandon my gay community. I'm going to be a sponsor of the federal gay rights bill."
There is nothing real that comes out of his mouth. Name them is a quote from Sutton Strack on The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Name them. Name them. That's her new famous line. Anyway, he also says that members of Congress routinely get others to cast their votes for them. They are so disconnected and uninvolved. Yes, exactly. So he's got a long list of charges. Of course, he's admitted to most of the charges against him. But the real interesting part of this is Speaker Mike Johnson, who has been all over the place on this and met with Santos over the weekend. And the question was, well, did he, offer Santos some kind of compromise if he'd resign? Did he ask him to leave? Did he give him support to stay? And the latest answer is that Speaker Johnson said, well, I think expulsion would set a bad precedent, so I'm not really for this. Well, that's not a good signal. And since you do need 2/3 of the House to vote for this, it makes me worried that they're not going to expel him.
That's true. But again, Santos says, what about due process? I've not been convicted of anything. And no one's been thrown out who hasn't been convicted. But the House Ethics Committee did an investigation of their own, and they found all this wrongdoing. They're not alleging it. They are offering the proof.
And there's no requirement that someone have actually committed a crime to be thrown out of Congress. You can throw someone out of Congress for anything.
Right.
Just as you can impeach someone for basically anything.
I remember when they wouldn't seat a communist who was elected, and they wouldn't seat Adam Clayton Powell for a while because they just, didn't like some of the things he said.
Well, I'd like to think George Santos would disappear in quicksand somewhere, but I fear that people like him are just the types who will keep showing up in unfortunate ways over the years.
Like a bad penny.
Exactly, or a snake.
I
do think, the district did elect him, and that does concern me about their willingness to elect another Republican who looks a little more sane to them.
About that, we shall see. In other federal news, President Biden has fallen behind Trump's pace of nominating and confirming federal judges. Senator Blumenthal of Connecticut said, we should stay weekends and postpone the Christmas recess to catch up. You think?
Well, meanwhile, there is an interesting development in the presidential race. This endorsement by Charles Koch of Nikki Haley. You act like that, but his whole apparatus is now going to be behind her, which includes unlimited funds in the hundreds of millions of dollars and an on-the-ground grassroots operation that operates in all 50 states.
Well, and in Iowa, Vander Plaats, the evangelical leader, has endorsed DeSantis. DeSantis has had almost unlimited funds. He's had tons and tons of money.
Well, I think people are pulling out from him. But historically, Vander Plaats's candidates, Ted Cruz, Rick Santorum, win the caucuses in Iowa and then go absolutely nowhere else. So I don't know that that's going to be harbinger, although it couldn't hurt for Nikki Haley to win in Iowa, but she's more likely to win in New Hampshire.
Let's give them the bad news from Florida.
Okay.
Well, the state legislator who wrote the Don't Say Gay bill is now sentenced to prison for fraud. His replacement from that district, Ryan Chamberlain, is now sponsoring an even more anti-LGBTQ bill, there he is, that would stop any contractor or organization receiving state funds from activity that considers an individual's sexual orientation or gender identity, which could shut down LGBTQ service organizations. Also in the bill, a clause that says the state will only recognize sex assigned at birth and makes it a false statement to ascribe a pronoun that does not correspond to birth sex, and that state employees may not be required to use a person's preferred pronouns. Now, it sounds like over the top, but it's Florida.
Well, basically what he's proposing is that the Don't Say Gay law that is in operation in government offices and schools and other public organizations be extended to corporate workplaces, to nonprofits, to basically almost every business in Florida. And that is just unbelievably horrendous. It means that gay LGBTQ employees would probably end up being fired unless they can really keep their mouths shut. But just the hint that they're LGBTQ might be too much for this law. No training on non-discrimination. As you say, no pronouns. But this is an attempt to do a blanket Don't Say Gay law for everyone in the entire state. Now, this may sound crazy, but the Florida legislature is so monochromatic in its lining up behind DeSantis and pushing all this through with absolutely no dissent or problem that it becomes a real possibility in Florida.
Gerrymandering has been the death of democracy. I mean, it's been going on since the 1700s when Elbridge Gerry, sort of did it for the first time in Massachusetts. But it's gotten, with computers, it's gotten so refined. I mean, in Florida, the state did very gerrymandered districts, and then DeSantis stepped in and said, I can make these better. And then, so it's horrible. And so he runs around saying, I'm just doing the will of the people. Look what the legislature, they're voting for it. But that's, and we do it on the Democrat side in the few cases where we have the opportunity. But it's just, if we could ban that, and the Supreme Court will not, partisan gerrymandering, we could make progress in this country, some.
Well, we could, but this vast divide between the people and the legislators is really going to be the death of us until I have great faith in the people to do the right thing in all sorts of cases. And we're about to talk about Kentucky, but they have passed all the reproductive rights protective amendments. They've elected some wonderful people, but in vast numbers of cases, they are just led down the yellow brick road to fascistic leaders, and they're not paying attention to what the state legislatures are doing, and they're not taking the power to get rid of those fascist legislators and put in some sane people.
It's very hard, and we're not going to get the chance to vote on abortion in Nevada because the judge ruled that the proposed ballot initiative covered more than one subject. Now they're going to appeal that, and they're going to try to get it on. Many states are going to have these ballot initiatives in 2024.
Yeah, I think there's a chance that Nevada judge will be overruled on appeal, and they might get the ballot initiative. I'm hopeful, and Montana is looking good for a good proactive ballot initiative. So we'll keep an eye on it.
Only we can hold on to John Tester there. All right. In otherwise ruby red Kentucky, Democratic Governor Andy Beshear was on MSNBC, and he said one of the big reasons he was reelected was the anti-trans campaigns run by not just his opponent, but the super PACs against him that he called just mean, gross, and cruel. And people don't like that. You can't just scapegoat people just to get folks angry, trying to demonize other human beings, trying to turn people against each other. So when he vetoed the anti-trans bill, he said it would cause an increase in suicide among Kentucky's youth and strip freedom from parents to make personal family decisions. But the legislature overrode him anyway.
They jumped the shark. The Republicans have overreached in a number of areas, and we can only hope they keep doing that because it's helping us. But I would like to think we are in a portion of the cycle where people are waking up in some cases. And it's great that Beshear said that, because too often even the politicians who are our friends run away from that kind of analysis and just want to avoid talking about it. And he showed a lot of intelligence and courage in stepping forth to say this was too much.
Well, those middle school students in Seattle aren't holding back. They're upset over the way Moms for Liberty works to censor all things LGBTQ in the schools. So they wrote to the right-wing group a whole packet of letters telling them LGBTQ rights are human rights. Love is love. And my favorite, gay is slay. Stop being a rat. The moms whined about it and are unmoved, of course. But the Seattle Public Schools issued a wonderful statement saying that this exercise, it was an independent activity. It wasn't part of the curriculum, but that we're dedicated to fostering welcoming, inclusive, and identity-safe environments for all our students. We take great pride in our unwavering support for LGBTQIA+ students, staff, and families.
Well, if not Seattle, where? But yes, the Moms for Liberty and other conservatives started to get upset and say, the schools cannot be doing this. This is public education. You can't have them waging hate campaigns against us. And the schools very clearly said, we didn't provoke this. The students did it on their own. This is their campaign, and a brilliant one.
It's not a hate campaign. It's an education campaign. They're trying to help you, poor benighted souls. Moms.
Well, the hate campaign is Moms for Liberty.
Ah, yes. Well, much less friendly is Sacred Heart of Jesus Parish School in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They're preemptorily suing so as not to be bound by the new LGBTQ rights law in Michigan. This is an Alliance Defending Freedom case. They say, well, we know it's got a religious exemption, but it entangles the state in evaluating the validity of claimed exemptions made by religious groups. So, while the right-wing wingers object to a young person being able to declare their gender identity, they don't want their religious declarations reviewable.
Well, this is an old argument. This is the Little Sisters of the Poor with contraception referrals. Religious organizations have long claimed that the state had no business defining religion. The state is not supposed to establish religion.
But religious groups are not totally exempt from human rights laws. I mean, if you've got a totally non-religious position in your school, you can't just, I could use the example of the secretary or the janitor, but others, you can't just fire them. You can't sexually harass them. There are other things you can't do.
Yeah, but there are a lot of things you can do. And this is the line we're still trying to define and draw. Now, is this the case where the Jewish and Muslim groups have weighed in with amicus briefs saying we've
inspired ecumenism.
Yeah, we agree, stay away from our religious organizations while we reestablish a theocracy in this country.
Take us to Coconut Creek, Florida, Anne.
Yeah, that's a better story. The principal there and the athletic director and coaches and everyone allowed a trans woman student, a trans girl, to play on the women's volleyball team. Clearly, they looked at her, decided she was appropriate for the team, and allowed her to play. Well, this did not go down well with the Department of Education in Florida. The state officials said, oh, no, this is against all our rules. You can't do that. And so they have reassigned the principal and 4 other officials of the school, athletic officials. And they say in a local news report that this is just while they investigate. but it was
They had a big protest. The students, they walked out.
The students walked out. There is the picture.
Look at that. Hundreds of them.
Yep. So good for the students.
Monarch.
The grassroots outrage is wonderful, and that's what we need: is more and more grassroots outrage.
And you know, we talk about how bad Florida is, but most of their big cities get like 100% ratings from the Human Rights Campaign in terms of their coverage of our rights.
And also, you know, here in New York and around the country, we're all very upset by the Republican plan to totally demolish our democracy if and when Trump gets reelected as president. Probably if Nikki Haley gets elected too. I think it's
a lot of them.
It's considering the financing behind this. So there's this thing called Project 2025, which is an 800-page report that the Republican right wing has written, the Alliance Defending Freedom. There's a whole list of all of them. And it's a plan, a step-by-step, very detailed plan of all the people they're going to fire, all the way they're going to override laws to appoint people to positions in temporary mode so that they don't have to have Senate confirmation, how they're going to destroy immigration. They're going to deport 100,000 people. They're going to change laws everywhere. And it's very theocratic and it's very fascistic. And they're very serious about it. And this has leaked, and it's out there for everyone to see. So there's a new group in New York called Stop the Coup. Is it Stop the Coup 2024 or 2025?
Well, they said 2025 because that's when
it's supposed to go into effect.
Power again.
Yeah. So try going to the website stopthecoup2025.org. To look, you can see the whole report there. You can see analysis of the report. You can see news analysis. You can see activist analysis, and you can see details about an upcoming town hall at the LGBTQ Community Center here on December 17th. Have I got that right?
I don't have it down because I'm not going to be here.
Okay.
But I will put it in our email. You go to Gay USA.
We will, and we'll keep talking about it for the next couple of weeks.
By the way, we're just so grateful to those of you who responded to our appeal last week and really keep us going. Thank you very much.
It's very heartwarming, and you donate, you send us nice notes that are very supportive and keep us going. And I've just gotten a little text saying, yes, it is December 17th for the
Thanks, Jackie.
for the town hall. And we are very moved by this support. We've been doing this a long time, but we think, you know, now more than ever, we need this and need this information circulating in this analysis. And we think of this as a conversation with you. So we appreciate your support, and of course would love more of it. And if you want to donate, if you haven't donated, if you want to donate more, go to our website at gayusatv.org. You'll get all the instructions on how to donate by credit card through our fiscal sponsor, Fractured Atlas, or send us a check or whatever you prefer.
Much as we would like to at our advanced ages to retire, it's such a crisis time. Let's stop the coup. It's tough to just go fishing.
Hard to walk away when the country is at risk, and all of us in our communities. The town hall is December 17th, 2:30 to 4:30 at the community center here on West 13th Street.
Okay. In Iowa, the ACLU and Lambda are challenging the state law banning LGBTQ library books and discussions of gender identity. It also forces educators to report to parents if they're aware of a trans student. Legal groups say it violates the First Amendment. Governor Kim Reynolds says, oh no, it protects children from pornography and sexually explicit content. No concern for the isolation of LGBTQ youth.
Did you see that thing I sent around this morning? I don't know if it's penetrated the universe. the report of a right-wing activist who testified to a state committee that when she was 11 years old, she read a book that had one kiss.
A scholastic book.
And she wants all scholastic books banned, all scholastic book fairs banned. It's crazy.
No, the reason is when she saw the kiss, it put her on a lifelong addiction to pornography. Come on. She needs mental health.
Well, of course she does, assuming she's not making it all up in the first place. She is an activist. She works for one of these right-wing organizations.
Well, it is that kissing that gets things going,
We won't go into our own histories of childhood.
All right. In New York, an appellate court in a divorce case is recognizing a lesbian marriage retroactively to the couple's 2005 religious ceremony, not just to their legal marriage date of 2011. Even though New York does not have common law marriage, the less moneyed spouse sued to have all the assets counted back to 2005. And the trial judge said, "You got no case, get out of here." But the appellate court said, there is a precedent deeming a marriage performed without a license, but otherwise in conformity with New York law, valid. So thanks to Professor Art Leonard for his coverage of this in Gay City News.
And back to Florida for a second. Good news. In Orange County, the schools there have said that teachers do have the option to use students' preferred pronouns with permission of the parents, because the Don't Say Gay law doesn't forbid using them. It just says you don't have to use them. So
great. I want to thank our viewer Rich down there in Florida for sending us a lot of this Florida news.
Yeah.
Okay. In business news, I read that Sam Altman, we have a picture of him, the OpenAI CEO in the news for getting fired by the board and then getting rehired, came out in prep school in St. Louis as a kid because a Christian group boycotted an assembly that was about sexuality. His college counselor said that his declaration changed the school environment entirely, opened up a great big box of all kinds of kids, and let them out into the world.
And in other, I think I'm muted at the moment because of the construction noise. Okay, I'm back. Other news from the Midwest. In Omaha, an owner of an apartment building was so annoyed at his homophobic neighbor that he painted the apartment building rainbow colors.
Great.
Now, I'm thrilled to say that the people who live in the apartment building, who you might think might have had some, reluctance about this, are thrilled by it. They love the rainbow colors on their apartment building.
That's great.
Yeah.
Did we finish up on the St. Mary's, Kansas story? This is where the city commissioners, they don't control the library, but they own the building that the library is. And they were saying, if you don't get rid of gay books, we're not renewing your lease. Last year, there was such an outcry that they stepped back. This year, they brought the fight again. So the library actually took some of the books out of the youth section. She says, I don't want to do it, but I want to keep the library open. Obviously, I object to what they're doing. But this board is like 5 members of a far right-wing Christian group. The whole board of the commissioners. That's who gets elected there. So pay attention in St. Mary's, Kansas there, and get yourself a new bunch of commissioners.
Okay. One more feel-good story. In Falmouth, Mass. On Cape Cod, the AARP has honored a gay couple, Paul Glass and Charles Evans, given them the Andrews Award for community service, because 10 years ago, they founded an LGBTQ Elders of Color group to support that otherwise unsupported community. In 2018, 5 years after that, Massachusetts started mandating training for service providers on LGBTQ issues. but they were 5 years ahead of that on their work, and they've been honored by the AARP, which has become very LGBTQ friendly over the years.
I'm a member. I've been for a long time
too, but there was a time they wouldn't mention us, but
yeah.
it was quite a while ago, and they've been very LGBTQ. If you read their magazine, they're
I learn a lot from the magazine. Full of good tips.
Yeah. Okay. Are we ready for international news?
I am. I guess we should start in the Netherlands. A big swing to the right. This was not expected. They elected Geert Wilders' party. They gave him a plurality, and he must form a coalition. He's a longtime anti-immigrant member of parliament. He wants Holland out of the EU. He's very Islamophobic. He has to have bodyguards for 20 years while he sits in the parliament because he's so vile. But when he campaigned in 2017, he tried to play gays off Muslims. He said the freedom that gay people should have to kiss each other, to marry, to have children is exactly what Islam is fighting against. So I wouldn't say he's pro-gay. He just hates Muslims, and he wants, and these are Muslims, many of whom have been born in the Netherlands.
And I resent his using us to condemn Muslims and to get elected on a far-right platform. I would like to think, because he is so hateful, that because he didn't win a majority, he just won like a third of the seats in parliament, that the other parties would band together and prevent him from gaining the presidency. But it sounds like a lot of them are just falling into line with him.
That's terrible. I mean, they say
I don't understand that at all.
He tried to moderate his language during this campaign, but
he's a friend of Marine Le Pen, who's also trying to moderate her language to get elected president of France.
He voted against legislation making it easier for transgender people to change their documents, but he still has a lot of problems with these other parties. So we'll see. He's
no real friend of ours. President Putin of Russia is no friend of Masha Gessen.
Oh my God. The Kremlin is accusing Russian-American LGBTQ journalist Masha Gessen, who has been on the show, of spreading false information. They're filing a suit meant to punish those critical of Russia's war on Ukraine. Masha, a staff writer for The New Yorker, gave an interview to a popular Russian YouTuber while Masha talked about the Russian massacre of thousands in Bucha in Ukraine. Russia branded that a false narrative. Gessen holds dual citizenship, fled Russia during the anti-LGBTQ crackdown that heated up in 2013. Now they say they'll likely, Masha uses they pronouns, they'll likely never be able to return to Russia, and even traveling to a country with an extradition treaty with Russia is now risky for her. So it's really going to impact on her ability to function as a journalist.
Their ability, you were right the first time. Masha identifies as non-binary and uses they, them pronouns now.
Now, the irony is that Gessen resigned from the board of PEN America when the organization canceled a panel they were supposed to host with 2 Russian writers due to a protest from 2 Ukrainian writers. It's a free expression misstep that PEN later expressed some regret for. By the way, Putin is calling on women to have 8 more children to make up for the war deaths. That's what he said.
8 more?
8 more.
Well, meanwhile, in Siberia, a trans activist, Alexandra Sinko, has been detained by authorities for protesting the proposal that we've told you about in the last couple of weeks to criminalize the so-called international LGBTQ movement.
Now, Sinko's sign says, "Save the right to be yourself." I'm sure she meant right, but I'm sure her English is better than my Russian.
No question.
She said, she's an openly trans woman. She says, we're not extremists. while some well, by the way, this was a one-person protest, which is technically you don't need any permission for one person to hold up a sign.
Right.
They still arrested her for propagating untraditional sexual relations, a charge that carries a fine or 15 days in jail.
Well, it's back to the original Russian don't say gay law. And like police officers everywhere, no matter what the law says, they will do what they want to do, including
disorderly conduct.
Yeah, exactly. Resisting arrest.
Looking at me cross-eyed.
All right. Well, let's go to strange news from England, where the North Hertfordshire Museum has redefined one of their busts of a Roman emperor and decided that, in fact, it's a trans woman, Elagabalus, emperor from 218 to 222 CE, whatever that is. What
Christian
is
era? The Christian
Thank you.
era.
Murdered by the Praetorian Guard, didn't identify as a woman, but used feminine identifiers in her time.
Call me not Lord, for I am a lady, she told one of her lovers.
That's pretty explicit.
She was termed wife, mistress, and queen. She used female pronouns, so it's not a new thing. One of the researchers said she dressed as a woman, offered vast sums to physicians to cut off her penis, and give her a vagina. She married a charioteer who was a former slave. Quite a life, and it was a teenager at the time. We also learned that 50 years earlier, Emperor Nero had a young man non-consensually castrated to live as his queen, and everyone to call him Empress. I share all this at the risk of giving Speaker Mike Johnson ideas, when he said that fodder for his theory that Rome fell because of homosexuality.
Well, he's working on getting rid of divorce. He wants to outlaw divorce and contraception, and
well, he has a covenant. He has a covenant marriage, so he signed up for a legal document, a law that makes it harder for him to divorce his wife.
He thinks everyone should have covenant marriages, and there is a healthy, I use the term advisedly, group of the right wing that wants to outlaw divorce completely.
Well, the last state, by the way, to have no-fault divorce was New York, liberal New York.
Yeah, they don't like no-fault divorce. They think that's inequitable and a bad idea. And
there are feminist groups who oppose no-fault also.
Not me.
Okay.
I'm in favor.
All right. The International Cricket Council. They announced that any male to female participants who have been through any form of male puberty may not participate in women's cricket internationally. They didn't define male puberty. Say they did an extensive consultation grounded in science and want to protect the integrity of the game. But Athlete Ally, on our side, says they are deeply concerned about the ban on trans women. They say it's based on misinformation and fear. The Women's Sports Foundation also objects to the ban and says that the real issues for women athletes are unequal pay, rampant sex abuse, and a lack of resources for women athletes.
Agreed. All right. Well, you know how in England, our friend activist Peter Tatchell has been on a campaign to get police chiefs around the country to apologize for their treatment of LGBTQ people over the years, and he's having some success with it. Well, the latest, and I'm going to distort this a little because I can't resist this as a headline, the Sheriff of Nottingham has apologized to gay people. Actually, it's the police chief of Nottinghamshire, who is the 8th police chief in the country to issue a formal apology.
Because he abused all those men in tights?
I guess so.
All right. Well, speaking of dressing up, trouble in Qatar. The gloves are off now that the World Cup has passed. So Qatari security forces detained and interrogated a Qatar Airways flight attendant from Indonesia for wearing tinted moisturizer at a luxury hotel in there in Doha. He was subsequently fired for this and deported. His name is Gilbert Ignatius. He was celebrating his birthday, and these security people come up with a cloth and they wipe his face and say, they told him, you have no rights here. This is Qatar. It's punishable by 10 years in prison. They charged him with prostitution, but ultimately they just deported him. It's out. They made him sign a document to get him out of there. Just outrageous.
And yet all sorts of corporations, sports leagues, whatever, are still doing business with this country without hesitation.
Well, it's noted that the undercover police, they go to shopping centers and they mostly target people from emerging countries, such as the Philippines, Indonesia, and Thailand. They don't go after the Westerners as much. But
because, the Indonesians don't have as good a PR operation. Back to the UK, where the Church of England is going to experiment with blessing same-sex couples, not marrying them, blessing them.
To see if lightning strikes?
Yeah, I think so. And only one couple at a time. It can't be in a group of couples. It's just one at a time.
Not like the Reverend Son Young.
This was approved by the church parliament by one vote.
Wow, see? Your vote counts.
Yeah, evidently.
Well, in the Catholic Church, the Pope has evicted the far-right reactionary Cardinal Raymond Burke from his there he is, his Vatican subsidized apartment, and cut off his salary of this retired American prelate. He was particularly vocal, Burke, on the issue of church needing to continue hating on gay people. On the other hand, Burke had a penchant for these flamboyant vestments to the point that one Vatican official had to tell him, you got to tone it down a bit.
They went into his apartment and they found all these luxury goods and empty bottles of high-priced champagne and just an endless supply of stuff he was spending money on. So they canceled his salary as well as kicking him out of his apartment.
It sounds like George Santos.
Very much. And clearly he was a troublemaker for the Pope, who described him as a source of disunity in the church, because he was very, very outspoken about how much he hated this Pope and thought he was the source of all evil.
76. But Francis also wrote a letter to the progressive bishops in Germany who were contemplating ending all-male priesthood and ending the condemnation of homosexual acts. Francis told them, you can't change church teaching, and these issues are not up for discussion. So it's one step forward, two steps back. The Pope is settling accounts. It's like something out of the Godfather movies.
It is. And of course, we like it when he does that. But then when he tries to cover his flank, as they say, we don't like it so much. But he's survived this far.
And then there's this bishop from Ghana. Now, Ghana is moving towards pushing a draconian Uganda-style anti-LGBTQ bill, kind of a kill the gays bill. He's a Catholic cardinal. He works in Rome, Peter Tuckson. He spoke on the BBC, siding with Pope Francis that homosexuality should not be criminalized. He said it's not a crime because a crime has to be an offense against somebody, and this is not. But he's not approving of homosexual acts, or same-sex marriage, or anything like that. And he also said that homosexuality is not a colonial imposition. Let me go to the record book here. We have words and phrases for this way back in our history about gay people functioning in our society.
He says what we need is an education campaign around these issues to bring people up to speed, which I thought was a very sensible proposal on his part.
Well, the Ghanaian Catholic bishops back home are not happy, and they are very much for this bill.
These people are going to regret it eventually. You don't think so?
St. Peter's not going to let them in?
I don't know about that, but I feel that 20 years from now, they will change their minds and they will say, you know what, I was wrong.
I'm going to talk about some things that have changed in 20 years and 50 years. Are we up to AIDS news?
Yes.
Friday is World AIDS Day, and check your local listings. There will be events all over the country. including in New York at the AIDS Memorial. They're going to be there all day reading names from
10 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the
around
AIDS
6 p.m. and 6:30. We'll put this in the email. They're going to have, Brent Nicholson Earl's candlelight, vigil thing. And so there's just so many activities and so much to remember.
And there's something, a documentary that's going to air on Peacock for a week, I think. No, that may be something else. But on Peacock, a documentary called Commitment to Life. And this is made by our pal Jeffrey Schwartz, who made the wonderful, wonderful documentaries on Tab Hunter and Vito Russo and Divine and Alan Carr. Really excellent documentaries. I recommend every single one of them. But Commitment to Life is about the fight over HIV in Los Angeles over the years. I'm sure it will be a lot of ACT UP LA and other ancillary actions around the HIV/AIDS epidemic. So you might want to look out for Commitment to Life on Peacock.
Okay. And I won't get too far into the weeds on this, but a new study found that testosterone hormone therapy for trans masculine individuals is safer than previously thought. It was conducted by Mount Sinai's Division of Endocrinology and Center for Transgender Medicine. They look how gender-affirming hormone therapy for trans masculine people affected how much of a person's blood is made up of red blood cells. And the conclusion was that providers should feel more comfortable prescribing testosterone where it is indicated.
And I know cisgender women who take testosterone to boost their sex drive if they're feeling if their libido is too low. So it has many uses, and it's good to know that it's safer than some might have thought.
The World Health Organization is reporting the first definitive case of Mpox transmitted sexually in Africa, transmitted by men having sex with men. The outbreak in Congo, where the overall Mpox has infected 12,500 people and killed 580. It's likely happening in other parts of Africa. And of course, everybody's traveling, so it could happen here. So get those vaccines from your local health department. I have.
Well, for that matter, I keep it. Half my family members did not show up for Thanksgiving dinner because they all have COVID. It is still very much out there. And if you are not adequately vaccinated, please consider that.
I mean, Ann and I both had it within the last couple of months, and
yep.
We are fully vaccinated. And
yeah, but we took Paxlovid to diminish the effect of it, and I think that helped.
And I got a tip from Ann. You just call the health department, and they will deliver it to you.
In New York City, yes. They go over your symptoms with you. You talk to a nurse, and then she or he, I talked to a woman, decides that yes, you should be prescribed it. And then they'll find a nearby pharmacy that has it in stock, because my first problem was that my local pharmacy across the street did not have it in stock, even though they left me a recording saying they would deliver it within 48 hours. Well, right. It's a good thing I didn't listen to that.
I got mine pretty quick. And the other thing they did when they interviewed me for the drug is they went over I take about 7 or 8 drugs for various conditions, and they went over every single one of them, and they said, you can't take that one while you're taking Paxlovid. And it was very, very helpful.
Yes. So whether this, we're in New York City, we had the advantage of this, but check out your local health department if you're not here and you're considering Paxlovid.
Okay. All right. Entertainment news?
Yes. Why not?
What happened to Janelle Monáe this week?
Well, Janelle Monáe, who is everybody's pinup girl or non-binary person. Yeah, exactly. Was at the Soul Train Awards, telecast on BET, and they were honoring her, but instead of honoring her as a sister of soul, she asked that they redefine that and gave her the Spirit of Soul Award, so that it would not be gender specific. She talked quite eloquently about her experience of coming to the discovery of herself and how she self-defines. I could listen to her read the phone book for several days, but she really gave a very moving speech, totally supported by the crowd, and who wouldn't support her? But congratulations to her, and congratulations for her making change in all venues.
All right. So have you seen Maestro?
No. Do I want to?
Well, here's the thing. This is Bradley Cooper's Maestro, where he directs and he stars as Leonard Bernstein. And it's only 2 hours long and couldn't cover everything. And while it does include some of his male lovers, now there he is. It mainly focuses about him and Carey Mulligan, who plays Felicia Montalegre, who was his wife. But it does cover some of his male lovers. Well, there he is with Gideon Glick, who was a later lover, who he actually left his wife for a while. And his earlier lover was played by the ubiquitous Matt Bomer. Now they have 3 kids together, but he never stopped seeing men. So and again, it's only 2 hours, but my regret is that the depths of the relationships with the men were really not plumbed. With the wife, it was, and her reaction to his homosexuality. There are some very moving scenes as Felicia's dying of breast cancer in 1978, and then I read that Tom, who's played by Gideon Glick, he died of AIDS 3 years later, and there's nothing about that. But this is an art film with a big budget. It's very visually and narratively challenging, but it's got terrific acting, so go see it for yourself. It's clearly a labor of love for Bradley Cooper. My God, did he work hard on this?
Yeah, but all the PR leading up to its release was about the great love story between him and his wife, and I kept thinking, really, I didn't know them. Maybe they did have a great love story in some way, but to diminish the his
people who knew him, and I only met him once, and I won't tell my story, but people who knew him said he was a gay man who took a wife. Right. Many gay men of that generation did. He realized, I can't succeed professionally unless I'm, in the mainstream and have a wife. And she knew about his homosexuality before she married him.
Well, that's
in theaters. It's out on Netflix on December 20th.
Well, I think I will wait for that.
And after being touted, also being touted for, of course, Cooper's, being touted for multiple Oscars. So is The Holdovers, directed by Alexander Payne. Now, this is set in 1970 at a New England prep school where a hated teacher, we have a picture, played by Paul Giamatti there in the middle, is tasked with supervising a bunch of students' holdovers left behind at the Christmas holiday. It's very funny, and I found it quite moving. All the leads are getting Oscar buzz. Giamatti and that kid, Dominic Sessa, this is his first movie, and he's really one of the stars of the film. He was just a theater student at Deerfield, the academy up there. And especially the Black woman there, Divine Joy Randolph, I would say she's a lock. She plays the wise and quite acerbic cook.
Well, Jennifer Hudson won an Oscar for her first movie of Dreamgirls straight off of American Idol. So it's
but she was a very experienced performer.
Yes.
I mean, this kid had done high school theater.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's the kind of people that Alexander Payne likes to cast.
Well, he did that movie set in the California wine country that I really loathed. Also,
Sideways. But I liked Election with Reese Witherspoon.
Oh, I loved Election. That was fantastic.
Well, he had some hits and misses. He's had hits and misses.
Just like us, Andy.
Including in his personal life, but we won't go into that.
Just like us.
By the way, out actor Coleman Domingo is all. I'm just reading the odds these days. Is also one of the favorites for Best Actor for his portrayal of Bayard Rustin, the gay civil rights leader.
Well, it's like politics. Do you believe the polling?
Oh, do I believe the polling? I believe that people are unhappy all over the world and they're switching sides. So that's what worries me about what could happen in this country.
Well, that's true, but that could be the just the lead up to utter destruction.
Well,
we'll see.
absolutely. By the way, episode 5 of Fellow Travelers on Showtime. In this episode, Senator Smith's son was arrested in a toilet. That's Senator Smith there on the left, and that's the son in the middle, of course, Matt Bomer on the right.
Matt Bomer, of course, is Hawk, who works for Senator Smith.
And is closeted. And so the son is sent off for conversion therapy. So the otherwise liberal Senator Smith is disgusted and ashamed of his son. And it's all based on a true story. The senator, when the arrest of his son is made public, takes his own life. Now, this happened in real life to a senator, where his son was exposed, and the senator, took his own life. This happened in Washington. So the arrest was leaked, of course, by the McCarthy, who was a closet case. This is 1952. It's only 17 years before Stonewall. And so think how much changed and how much is coming back these days.
Yeah, I would say how much has not changed, because certainly kids are still suicidal. People are still afraid to come out. We're in an atmosphere now where you can be arrested or prosecuted. It's
and that's certainly true, and it's intense in like Russia and parts of Africa and all these kinds of places,
or Iowa or Florida.
Yes, but those kids in Iowa and in Florida, they're rebelling. They're standing up to this.
They are, and that is the beauty of this, and we love them for that. All right, so we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Ruby Fruit.
Well, yeah, I mean, this was Rita Mae Brown's breakout lesbian novel. I read it back then. It meant so much to all of us, especially lesbians. It was originally published by a small feminist press, then reissued by Bantam Books 4 years later, and became a crossover bestseller. And everyone in this Times article, from Paula Vogel to Katie Lang, told the Times how much the book aided their liberation. Now, Rita Mae signed my copy, "Raise Hell," as I imagine she did in most cases. Look, and think about this. So this is 1973 that this came out. That's only 45 years after The Well of Loneliness. So you see how much changes. There's Rita Mae.
Yeah.
She was part of the Lavender Menace and the feminist movement.
Yes, if that picture went a little more to the left, you'd see my college friend, who was a friend of Rita Mae's and was also part of Lavender Menace. It's a very jaunty book. It's full of energy and humor and sexiness, and all of that made a huge difference. It was a very out book. And that's why it became famous, because it was unusual or unique even at that time. The Well of Loneliness was a dirge. It was terrible. And, I've told you I had nightmares about Lillian Hellman and the Children's Hour, and that I was yelling at her for, how dare you have a suicidal lesbian character in the Children's Hour. So this was a real change and a real inspiration for a lot of people.
Yes, well, I mean, the Boys in the Band comes out in 1969, and one of the lines is, not all word faggots bump themselves off at the end of the third act. That
very jaunty production.
Yes,
it had a few moments of light dance notes, but it also was a little depressing.
Yes,
and Ruby Fruit was not so depressing.
And, look, for Radcliffe Hall, who wrote Well of Loneliness, I mean, it was a breakthrough at the time. I mean, she was quite daring, just covering the subject in 1928.
Yeah. But, we had Emperor Elagabalus, who was...
Well, yes, and you had cultures where homosexuality was just no big deal, hundreds and thousands of years ago. And of course, it's in every animal species as well. People, these right-wing religious people, they want to deny nature.
Well, now I have construction workers drilling the wall, and I just hope they don't break through and get to me anytime soon. So we are at the point
down to our last 30 seconds.
We are. So
thank you for watching. Thanks for being with us. We hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. I did up in Rhode Island.
Yeah. Well, aside from half the family having COVID, I did too. We played golf the next day. 40-degree weather. My brother and his son were in shorts.
That's great.
Very much.
I feel like I need to get out and get a walk right now.
Okay, do that. And we'll see all of you next week and try to get past the construction noise.
Bye-bye. All right.